And what I want to talk about today is, well, to introduce changes we're making next year in order to strengthen our Sangha and hopefully inspire you to participate in that. But I'm going to start off by talking more generally about Sangha and why it matters. So in a way I'm going to do the reverse of what Manjivajra just did so beautifully and clearly, where he said really the true Sangha is the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, that's the refuge, that's Sangha's refuge, but let's bring it down and down and down to what we can actually have in our experience. So I'm kind of going to do that in the other order and start saying, what do we think it is, what do we see of Sangha, and then go more deeply into my experience of, my glimpses of what it can most truly be. So thinking about Sangha as a jewel, if you look at it more and more deeply, if you really gaze into its depths more and more, what do you see there? So it's like there are levels of ways of looking at what the Sangha is. So first of all, I think anyone who comes through the door is likely to meet us as a friendly group, as a bunch of people who seem quite, easy to kind of meet and talk to and be with. We're friendly, we're a bit messy, we're pretty imperfect. That communicates something in itself. Anyone who comes along could think about us as a source of the Dharma, in a way, a source of teaching. Probably people have tried meditating from a book, perhaps, but they come along and find it's easier to kind of learn to meditate from a human being. That having real people who are living the Dharma life is more useful. You can easily see that the Sangha is a good context for meditating in. I think, again, when I'm here on a beginner's evening, people talk about the atmosphere in this room. It's tangible. They know that something different happens when they try to meditate with a group of people here than if they try to meditate at home. They know that's a different experience. So there's this sense of Sangha as community in a very straightforward way. We all need connection. We all need a tribe to belong to. And we can be a positive one, a one that's actually helping people to connect with the Dharma, with what's most positive in themselves, in their lives. And I think in that there is a glimpse of something more. When people know there's an atmosphere in meditating together, they're glimpsing something else in a way. So it can be like a glimpse of perfect vision. It can be there's something different about these people. This is a bit else than what I've met. And I think when people come along and say, oh, just coming into the Buddhist Centre felt like coming home, there's something they're connecting with that we're generating together. It's not about our wonderful building, is it? It's something that goes on here that people can discern, right, even at a first glimpse in a way. But then as you get more involved, as you go deeper into the jewel, look a bit more deeply, you start to see more and more, I think, that Sangha in itself is a practice. There's something we're doing through our interactions that makes a difference to us. And that can be messy, difficult, challenging at times. It can be nourishing and inspiring, but sometimes it's not so easy. But that there's something important about engaging with that, with all its sort of highs and lows, that matters, that changes us. So Sangha's important in our process of integration, of getting to know ourselves better and better, more aware of ourselves, so we know how to work with ourselves, how to really give ourselves to the Dharma. There's space in the Sangha for all aspects of us, for us to come along with all our different kind of pulls, all our kind of muddles, as well as with our inspirations. And I think when we rub up against other people, it just mirrors us back very strongly. It's a good way of learning about what we're really like when we find other people see things differently. So that gives us the opportunity to really take responsibility for ourselves and learn, what we're bringing to each interaction, each communication. But most importantly, it gives us this opportunity to gather around our values, around what's most important. So we've got something to integrate around. It's not just a lot of random happening. We've got the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha in view in our interactions, and that's what really ultimately integrates us. The Sangha is important in our practice of positive emotion, helpful intentions. We can practice the Metta-bhavana in the way we just did, where we include people who, we've got varying degrees of liking, disliking, knowing, not knowing with. We've got a good, it's just like a very fertile ground for doing that practice. It's a very positive ground to practice generosity in. It's a place where we can really share and give and learn to trust each other. And it's a source of shraddha, of faith, of confidence. I think when we see other people from a whole range of types, a whole range of lifestyles, engaging with the Dharma, practicing, changing, it can give us confidence even in our lower moments or periods. And if we can open to that, if we can be really receptive, if we can really practice receptivity and open to what is helpful in the Sangha, in other people, it can have a huge effect. It's had a huge effect on me, just learning that other people do care about me, they do love me, and having people that hold faith in me and my ability to take my practice deeper, even when I'm really doubting that in myself. So just really being receptive, and really being receptive of what you see of the Dharma shining through other people, the truth and beauty you see when other people are connected or inspired or just really working with something difficult, can be a great source of faith in oneself if you can really be receptive, really open to that. And really engaging with what's challenging in the Sangha, I think particularly, is a place where we encounter spiritual death and the freedom and spiritual rebirth that arises from that. There's nothing like other people to really bring you up against your self-clinging, to really find out what you hold on to as important and crucial and that you must defend, and to give you the opportunity to sort of see there's another point of view and loosen that and become free of that, become free of all the binds within us. So before I go on to just talk a bit more about, to go a little bit deeper into the Sangha Jewel, looking into the Sangha Jewel, let's just all take a few minutes to reflect on our experience of Sangha. So just have a break from me telling you and let you just have a think. So you might like to close your eyes and just take the time to be fully present. Notice your contact with the ground or the chair. The sounds around us. And your breathing. And then bring to mind your experience of Sangha. Particularly just try and contact one of your strongest experiences. Think of a particular incident where the Sangha felt important for you, or where you felt you could really discern what Sangha was, or where it was really affecting you. Just leaving space to see if something comes to mind. A time when you were in the Sangha. what was going on. Bring it to mind as vividly as you can. Where you were, who was there, what was happening. Sensing how that affected you. How it's affecting you now, to bring it to mind. Sense whether that matters and how it matters to you. To have had that experience, to have experiences like that, how they could affect you. How does it matter? Was something changed in you by that experience, however briefly? What conditions brought that about? What factors, both externally and in you, were at play for your Sangha experience? And bringing that reflection to a close. So you could have a chance to share a bit of that in groups when we break into groups in a bit, but I'll just tell you some of my Sangha moments. I have the privileged position of getting to share with you all. So there's many individual communications I could talk about, individual conversations, usually with order members, that have made a difference to me, that have changed me. But I'm not going to go into those today. I think some of the most important experiences, though, of being in the Sangha are things that are a bit broader than those one-to-one communications, and which tend towards edging me into, transcending wrong views about how things are. Such as, we have to all be shiny and positive all the time. I've got to be perfect to be able to show up in the Sangha. Or it's difficult to be an individual in a group. How do I fit in and be myself? Those kind of things that we all tussle with. Or that there's actually ultimately a difference between what I do for myself or for others. A few friends have been talking about this with me recently. It's like, we have this idea that I've got to not do this because, or somehow I'll suffer if I do that, whereas it's not always like that when you do something that you can do things that help yourself and others. So one example that came to mind was the 2 retreats we've had at Adhisthana, 2 Sangha, big Sangha retreats with the Bristol Sangha. So both of those we had getting on for 60 people, including people from Frome. And they're the biggest gatherings we've had of the Bristol Sangha as the Bristol Sangha. They're the biggest experiences we've had of gathering in large numbers, as the Buddha exhorted us to do. And I think most people there kind of glimpsed something of what Sangha can be through us just being there together, regardless of what was going on in a way. So it was definitely beyond whether each of us was having a pleasant time or an easy time or was inspired or enjoying it in a way. Certainly the team as a microcosm of that had varied experiences. The first year I really enjoyed it, but some people were struggling a bit. Other people had a straightforward time. The second time I was thoroughly grumpy all weekend, and other people had an easier time. And I imagine it was like that for the whole, 60 people. Some people were having a fantastic time, and other people might have had various little kind of things they were dealing with, or big things they were dealing with. But nevertheless, regardless of the difficult bits, something was going on. There was something greater happening by us all being there, just seeing each other, being there, being in the Sangha, knowing that this diverse bunch of people were all practicing the Dharma. I think that does give faith. We were talking about this in one of the mornings this week. Why did the Buddha say meet in large numbers? And I think it is a great source of faith just to see that all these other people are doing it somehow. Another thing that came to mind for me was the order convention this year. I think that was my strongest sense ever of really creating some sort of tangible goodwill just through our shared practice. So we were exploring a diverse range of practices in all sorts of different ways. Different people were leading us, but there was a real openness to all of those being paths, ways to engage, ways to practice. It did feel incredibly harmonious. And really the bit that really stands out for me was an unexpected happening where the person leading an evening event had got the times wrong and didn't show up. She thought it was half an hour later than the start time. But so you've probably got, 400 or 500 order members gathered, waiting for something to happen, and nothing's happening. But we all fell silent at the time that we were meant to start. And there was this fantastic atmosphere of kind of anticipation and excitement and goodwill. I didn't get the impression anybody was getting grumpy about, well, where are they? Why aren't we starting yet? There may have been some level of anxiety. I was starting to think, where is she? I hope she's all right, but, oh well. But collectively, we kind of dealt with that. Someone went out to look for the speaker. Someone else said, let's salute the shrine. And, something emerged from us as a whole. But the atmosphere was like, it was magic. There was something very, very beautiful in that room with us just all sitting there in silence, enjoying being together. It was very simple, very straightforward. real sort of receptivity. Another occasion that came to mind for me was leading a retreat maybe a year or two after I was ordained at Taraloka, our women's retreat centre. And I was co-leading this with two friends, and we were doing it on the basis of a practice that all of us engaged in. So we were communicating what was most inspiring and most precious to us, the three people leading the retreat. So it was like we were communicating the same jewel, but we'd all got different facets of it in view. Our point of engagements were all quite different in a way. Our favourite aspect of what we were exploring, they varied. But we could really, really understand each other's and go, oh yes, that is the same thing I'm talking about. It sounds a bit different, but I really get that. So there was a lot of appreciation of each other. And it just felt really creative. It felt like I could really fully express myself and what's most important to me, and that there was space for all three of us to do that. And out of that, a bigger whole was created than any one of us could have done on our own. We could each bring ourselves in very fully. So it wasn't like I had to fit in with someone else's way of seeing it. I could fully bring in my way, as it were, and so could my two friends. And something, very, very lovely was created. It had a lot of creativity, a lot of flow between us all in doing that, a lot of trust. And from that, we could weave in other people too. So I'd talk to people, perhaps in their meditation reviews, and they'd inspire me a bit, or I'd think, yes, that's a really good point, and I'd be able to bring that into how I was leading a meditation. So it was like this sort of creative flow started to include the whole retreat. All the retreatants were all part of it too. We were creating something together there. And I think in a way that's my peak experience of Sangha and what I'd aspire to in a team working together. This harmonious, really fully bringing ourselves in, really appreciating each other, but being all in tune with what it is we're trying to do. So I'm going to give you a picture now that's not of a specific event. It's a more symbolic understanding of myself in the Sangha. It's a picture of me in the Sangha with all the influences upon me in the Sangha. So here I am, little old me, ordinary person with my usual share of greed, hatred and delusion in my particular individual manifestation of that. And yet, somehow, I've come under the sphere of influence of this Sangha, of the Triratna Buddhist order in particular. As Shantideva says, somehow, as if a blind man found a jewel in a dung heap, I've come across this treasure of this Sangha. And that has been such an influence on me, is such an influence on me. So as I was saying, the whole order has been an influence on me, perhaps in those moments of sitting silently together, perhaps in one-to-one conversations that have had a big effect on me. But it's also helpful, I think, to have more intense, more stronger links with people, stronger connections. So you could sort of take that whole picture of me in the order as kind of encapsulated especially strongly in some particular friendships and relationships. So I could bring to mind first the two women who are my Kalyana Mitras, my lovely friends, my Dharma friends, who around the time of my ordination undertook to sort of mentor me into settling into the order, if you like. Which is quite a thing, to have someone do that, to really take you on. But it's also quite a thing to be receptive to that. So, they were doing their bit, but so was I, in a way. I decided consciously that these were women I could trust. They're certainly not enlightened, they're certainly not perfect. They're not perfect human beings. They've got their glitches. But I could see enough of the light of the Dharma shining through them to let that affect me and to be able to trust that and open to it. So those two friendships particularly have been important, are important, and have a particularly strong influence because I'm open to them. Because they're something we've consciously agreed to keep that connection alive and keep in touch with each other. So in a traditional meditation, or a variation of it rather, I can imagine them above me, if you like, with a stream of influence coming down from them. So there's this stream of adhisthana, of blessings, of influence, of the Dharma, of love and truth, streaming down, faith particularly actually, streaming down from them to ordinary little old me through the crown of my head. Above them I can imagine my preceptors, the women who ordained me, who have also been very influential, very helpful in my deepening involvement with the Dharma. And above them I can imagine Bhante Sangha, who, I have his influence directly through his teachings, through all the Dharma I've studied here. And he founded this order that's been such a shaper for me, it's kind of moulded me into who I am at the moment. Without him streaming this influence down to my preceptors, my friends and me, and through them to me, where would I be? Who would I be? And above him I can imagine the Buddha, and in between all the teachers that he learnt from. Just to have some specific examples, I could have the Buddha, Sangha, my preceptors, my Kalyana Mitras. And I can imagine the influence, the confidence in the Dharma, that sense of love and truth and openness streaming down into me. And just try to be open to that. Try and believe that that's there. And the more I do that, the more I can trust it and open to it, the more, open and receptive I become, the less I become little old me. The more I'm influenced by that, and I become more and more open, more and more aware, more and more loving in myself. And I start to feel that there's not much to me apart from that influence. So it's as though I'm made of the red light. Or at least all the kind of emotional knots in me and all the other kind of goings on, all the habits and tightnesses and the molecules of my being, in a way, are bathed in this red light and loosened by it. So it flows through and around, interacts with all my habits and all my kind of tighter ways of being. So I could be completely this stream of red light interacting with whatever else I've brought along today, in a way. So there's nothing but this sort of dynamic of influencing happening, this interaction between my greed, hatred and delusion and the red light that's been awakened in me, streaming into me by the influences of the order and those particular strong connections I have. And to the extent that is so, the more that is so, I'm just open awareness, made of love. I'm potent, I'm powerful, and I'm a source of influence, of love and light for others, red light. I'm even potent in relation to those I look up to. So it's not that I'm lesser than them in some sort of way. I can influence them too. I'm able to give to them, able to shape them. So you get a sort of flow of a positive feedback loop between us. If I imagine one of my friends, really feel my connection with her, really feel her influence on me and my ability to influence her too, it's like it's bringing the red light more alive in her too, and then she's more able to influence me, and so on. We need each other. We need to just keep accentuating the glow in each other in this way, and I think this is how communication at its best in the Sangha can work. And those people above my head, in a sense, they need me to, not just to influence them, but to communicate with. Every time we share our inspiration, every time we share our understanding of the Dharma with somebody else, it deepens it in us. That it's in the nature of awakening to communicate, to express itself, to reach out to other people. That's just the way it is. That's part of how things are. So we all need to develop our understanding, deepen our insights by sharing them with other people. So those people who I'm in this feedback loop with, it's like, it's win-win-win-win all the way, really. You can't really, everybody gains. It's not for me, it's not for them, it's not for either of us. And I don't really exist in this small, tight way that I thought I did. I'm just this flow of influence, mutual influence. And actually, I think it's that flow between us. For me, that is what the Sangha jewel, the Sangha as refuge is. It's what's between us. It's that I'd bow down to. It's that I could give myself to. It's not about that perfect or imperfect human being. It's not about any one of us. It's not about me. It's about that process of sparking something in each other or lighting a light in each other. That transmission of nothing. Nothing is passed on, but me seeing the light in you lights it in me, and that makes it even brighter in you, and something happening there. That's what I think the real essence of Sangha is for me. And each of you is in this picture. The brighter that red light is, the more it can influence other people in this room, in the world. To whatever extent I'm succeeding in communicating with you now, right now, to whatever extent you're understanding me, if there's any sort of resonance in you, then we've got another feedback loop happening. We've got another of these mutually beneficial loops going on. So if there's anything in you at the moment that's kind of alive in response to me talking, well, we've got this whole kind of network of communication, of Sangha going on. And you're all influencing me right now by being here. If any one of you wasn't here, it would be different. Maybe subtly, but it would be different. And each of you is in relationship with people in this room, people outside this room, where you have your own communication loops going on at different times. So you'll go out of here and you'll talk to other people, and there'll be, whatever kind of communication happening. It might take a spark of something from the day. There'll be all sorts of other things. There'll be your degree of tiredness. There'll be the mental states you brought with you at the beginning that might surface again in a bit, or there'll be, whatever. There's this whole mixture of goings on in each of us. And there are bits we can feed in each other which are really, really helpful. And you'll be taking some of those out with you whenever you speak to somebody else. And that's why Sangha's important to me. That's why it's a jewel for me. Because it's how I see that I'm nothing but conditions. It's not just that we provide supportive conditions for each other to practice. It's that there's nothing but conditions, and to the extent that we can support each other's practice, influence each other's practice, is the extent to which we can practice. There's no such thing as me and my practice. There is only our practice. To whatever extent there's a light in you, you're beaming that out to everybody here. And sometimes it's going to be dull and grubby, and sometimes it's going to be bright and shiny, but there's always the possibility of catching a bit more light from someone else, and there's always the possibility of sharing your light. But we can only do that if we're all here. And of course I don't live in touch with that vision any more than any of us. A lot of the time I'm little old, grubby, troubled me, getting grumpy and all the rest of it. I don't constantly know that I'm nothing but the conditioning factors of all of you here. But I want a Sangha that supports that vision. I want a Sangha that expresses that, that makes it possible, that allows us all to transform ourselves in accordance with that, or because of that, because that is how it works. That's why the Sangha is important to me, and that's the sort of Sangha I want. So I've got some specific next steps that I'm going to be talking about after we've broken into groups. But before that, just more generally, let's just think about the sort of Sangha we might like. So imagine a Sangha where we gather weekly in large numbers, like at least as large as this. But what if it was like at Adhisthana? We could just about squeeze in this room. Imagine a Sangha where we have more chance to eat and relax together. Imagine a Sangha where we talk about the Dharma more, so we're deepening our understanding of how it really applies in our lives. A Sangha where we come from our values more. We're more communicating on the basis of our values. We try and avoid the descent into, what you did yesterday, and we're really trying to find a way to really see the light in each other. Imagine a Sangha where, whenever we meditate, we're really aware of the energy we create between us, that sort of atmosphere, that intangible magic, something that goes on when people meditate together. We're really tuning in with that, noticing that. Imagine a Sangha where, you just really want to be here because it's so alive and vibrant and inspiring. You just want to catch some of that. You just want to be here. Imagine a Sangha where you really enjoy and appreciate sharing your experience with newer people, both because it helps them and because it deepens your understanding. Imagine a Sangha where everyone feels more connected with each other and more valued in the Sangha. Imagine a Sangha where our regular courses are designed to really help new people into participating in the Sangha if they want to, and where it is so alive and vibrant and inspiring that a lot of them would want to. But we're really supporting them into joining in with us. Imagine a Sangha where at every stage of involvement there are people taking a next step, where numbers of men and women mitras are growing, numbers of order members are growing, more and more people are really plunging into the Dharma life in this community. Imagine a Sangha where insight is flowering more and more amongst us. I'm sure most of us have some glimpse of insight, or we wouldn't be here today. But if that were becoming a more and more frequent, deeper, established experience for more people, more of the time. And imagine a Sangha where we're doing this all because we want to, out of generosity, out of our enthusiasm, and we don't need to be put off by money. So there's no charge for coming along to the Buddhist Centre. You needn't be put off by paying for things. You can just be here because you want to be. And we're not charging for our courses or our Sangha nights. It's a Sangha I want to be part of, and I hope you do too. And if you do, we can create it together. It's very possible, but I can't do it. I can't make it happen. The centre team can't make it happen. The trustees can't make it happen. The order members around Bristol can't make it happen. It depends on everybody wanting it enough to join in. It depends on you. And there'll be bits of that, that you like more than others. There might be bits you don't like. But we've somehow got to come together if we're going to really move into this more deeply and make this happen. To the extent you want at least some of it, we can create it together. So I'll talk a bit about how in a little while, but before that there's a chance to go into groups and just explore what I've said so far, partly to save you having to pay attention to me for too long in a row, just to have a chance to bring yourselves in a bit more fully. So we can get into groups and you can talk about your deepest experiences of Sangha, your strongest, most important experience of Sangha, and you can talk about your responses to imagining a Sangha where all of that was happening, all of that was possible, and how that sounds to you. So we'll do that next.